Welcome once again to Justified Nonetheless. My name is Kevin Berger, and I apply the principles of polemics and skepticism to atheism and the claims made by atheists. In this video, as promised, I'll be sharing my correspondence that I had with Matt Dillahunty on a couple of occasions. In the first, I commented on a video titled Thoughts on Hume's Axioms for Today, on what I perceive as a logical inconsistency in accepting some presuppositions sans evidence while rejecting others for this very reason. So let's get right to that. I start off by saying what's fascinating to me about this is how a skeptic can accept any logical axiom, let alone use it as the basis of his epistemology in the first place, given that by definition a logical axiom is indemonstrable and cannot be shown with any empirical evidence to be objectively true. Thus, such acceptance must be the result of an argument of self-evident truth, which is a logical fallacy. To wit, not only can many logical axioms, such as Occam's razor and the principle of non-contradiction, occasionally be shown to be incorrect, others such as Clifford's principle, Hitchens' razor, and the idea that you cannot prove a negative are self-refuting. In short, if one sincerely holds on to the idea that he should proportion his confidence to the evidence and applies this without prejudice, logical axioms are necessarily precluded. Matt does reply to this, saying, presuppositions are necessary. Without them, there is no foundation for reasoning. And to that, I respond to him, who gets to choose which presuppositions are valid? On what objective basis is that determination made? How does the acceptance of some presuppositions, as opposed to others, not invariably result in the commission of a special pleading fallacy? He doesn't respond, but I do add a couple of edits here as new thoughts come to my mind. I say, how do we reconcile presuppositions that can be or already have been shown to be false to justify their continued use as a foundation for epistemology? How do these presuppositions, when necessarily must be accepted sans evidence, objectively differ from any other propositions accepted sans evidence, i.e. on faith? If faith is understood to be the acceptance of some proposition for which there is insufficient evidence to warrant such acceptance, then the acceptance of any logical axioms cannot be differentiated from faith, and a distinction that does not manifest in reality is indistinguishable from one that does not exist. I go on to say, a claim is a declarative statement that something is true. The aforementioned logical axioms all declare that something is true, therefore they are claims, and as such, they invoke a burden of proof accordingly. Occam's razor that entities should not be multiplied beyond necessity is a claim, and it invokes a burden of proof. Clifford's principle that states it is wrong always, everywhere, and for anyone to believe anything on insufficient evidence is a claim, and invokes a burden of proof. Hitchens' razor that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence is a claim, and it invokes a burden of proof, and so on. To accept these claims sans evidence while demanding evidence of other claims is logically inconsistent. To dismiss an unsubstantiated claim on faith for which there is no contradictory evidence either, while accepting a claim despite evidence to the contrary, is less reasonable. He does not respond to that, but I do add another one later on, where I say, I realize that you are a busy individual, and as such you may have either forgotten this thread or have not had the opportunity to respond. However, as 2 weeks have now passed, I thought it would be prudent and proper to provide you with another chance to do so. You have stated that not every religion can be right, but they can all be wrong. However, even if every religion is wrong, we both know that to conclude from this that no deity of any kind exists anywhere in the universe would be an example of fallacious reasoning. Therefore, my primary question is this. If we jettison religion from the discussion entirely, what then, pray tell, makes the presupposition that at least one deity exists is true, which is all that theism suggests, less reasonable than the presupposition that, say, that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence is true, given that the former has not and cannot be refuted, whereas the latter is self-refuting? You've also said that faith is the excuse that people give for believing something when they don't have evidence. With this in mind, my secondary question remains, if such logical axioms, these aforementioned presuppositions, which by their very nature cannot be shown to be objectively true, either by empirical evidence or demonstration, and have on occasion have been shown to be false or self-refuting, serve as a foundation for one's epistemology. In what consequential way does this differ from faith? From where I sit, you've simply adopted different presuppositions with no more evidence than anyone's preferred deity and applied an alternative label to it. Indeed, if we want to characterize faith as the excuse that people give for believing something when they don't have evidence, and one accepts literally any logical axiom or presupposition as true, then such acceptance is the product of faith, even if the usage of that specific term offends his delicate sensibility. Even more condemning is the fact that while the existence of a deity, some deity, any deity, is held to be unfalsifiable, many of the presuppositions have been adopted, can be demonstrated as false, yet are merrily embraced anyway, which can better be described as delusion. Notice that in his short response, Matt does concede that presuppositions are necessary. They're inevitable. But what is a presupposition? It's something that is taken for granted, something that is presupposed as true without evidence. In what way does this objectively differ from faith? Consider the following syllogism. Premise 1, either a belief has an evidentiary basis or it doesn't. That's derived from the principles of non-contradiction and the excluded middle. Premise 2, if a belief doesn't have an evidentiary basis, it is faith, by definition. Premise 3, presuppositions, logical axioms, maxims, whatever you want to call them, do not have an evidentiary basis. That's also by definition. Conclusion, presuppositions are faith. Changing the label that one assigns to something doesn't change what it is. The principle of identity is also one of the 3 laws of logic. In fact, it's traditionally the first one. In this second clip, we'll see where I challenge Matt on several claims that I have seen regularly expressed by atheists, a couple of which I've heard Matt express himself. Let's take a look. I begin this correspondence saying claims aren't evidence, unless the claims are things like I don't have faith, I have reasonable expectations based on evidence, or I withhold belief, or there's no evidence of X, or not believing in P is different from believing not P. And Matt replies to me saying, those aren't evidence either. Sorry you learned nothing. Meanwhile, the last one's just basic logic, which shows how deep your ignorance goes. And so I reply to him, quoting him, they aren't evidence either. Good, then we're agreed. So where is the evidence to support those claims, Matt? He doesn't reply, and I decide to go ahead and poke the bear again, and I say, quoting him again, the last one is just basic logic. I have posted an entire series of videos on this topic challenging it. I recommend that you watch them. And then I quote him a second time and say, which just shows how deep your ignorance is. Your self-righteous posturing won't save you here, nor will your petty sophomoric insults. That which is objectively true is true regardless of anyone's desires to the contrary, attempts to prove otherwise, or motives for doing so. What is. All right, there are several notable things about Matt's short response here. Firstly, he didn't deny that any of those declarative statements are claims. Secondly, he explicitly stated that those claims aren't evidence either. Thirdly, he didn't deny that those claims also invoke a burden of proof. Fourthly, he didn't provide any empirical evidence to support any of those claims. Fifthly, he didn't, like any other atheist I've encountered, try to provide any empirical evidence. And sixthly, like every other atheist that I've encountered, he resorted to logical fallacy coupled with deflection, distraction, evasion, and sarcasm. As I've said before, though I do not claim to know that there is no genuine distinction between non-belief and belief to the contrary in reality, I am convinced that this is the case. And the more interactions like this that I have with atheists who assert a genuine distinction without providing or even attempting to provide empirical evidence, the more convinced I become. So until next time, even if your beliefs aren't necessarily true, remember that they should be justified nonetheless.